Impact environnemental du bitume dilué. Environmental impact of diluted bitumen. Bitumen.
Hi everyone. So I'll keep this short. And so this ties into the overreaching project that Manuel described earlier today. This project here is focused on dilbit. Next slide, please. So what is dilbit? I'll make an abstract as summaries just to make it more interesting, actually, instead of putting a lot of work on it. So to transport bitumen via pipeline, so bitumen, of course, is what we find in the oil sands in northern Alberta. It's blended with lighter hydrocarbon fractions, yielding a less viscous diluted bitumen, dilbit. So they blend it with naphtha, for example, sometimes diesel, other solvents. So this way it becomes less viscous, and they can transport it by pipeline. Down, please. And so, although it's often considered safer than other means of transport, so for example, railways, barges, incidents such as the one that happened near Kalamazoo River in Michigan almost 10 years ago, have highlighted the potential environmental risk caused by dilbit pipeline rupture. So dilbit, in general, you can imagine there's light fractions and heavy fractions, so it can be more complicated and its behavior than regular conventional crude, and its behavior in the environment hasn't been well established. Next slide, please. Or next. So while there's been a lot of work done recently and some studies have come out in the marine environment, there were a few detailed investigations into the fate and transport of dilbit in the Vado zone and groundwater, a knowledge grab identified over 5 years ago. So the main focus of this project is going to be on shallow groundwater systems. Okay, next slide. So the objectives of this project. So one, to better understand the relationships between geochemistry, hydrogeology, microbiology, and toxicology during natural attenuation, for example, biodegradation, photodegradation of dilbit in shallow groundwater systems. So this is we're integrating everything. It's a very holistic project, and it's going to involve people from a wide variety of different backgrounds. Okay, so the phase one of this project, we're going to be using large column experiments, and phase two will be using large mesocosms. So initially we had hoped to secure funding for large mesocosms via a proposal that was submitted to Alberta Innovates, and unfortunately that proposal didn't get funded. So the phase one project is going to go ahead as plans have changed slightly, but it's still very important information to carry these experiments out using large columns. Okay, and another component of this project, dilbit project, is to look at microbial uptake of spilled dilbit in lake sediments via a series of controlled releases in the experimental lakes area of Northwest Ontario. So that work was carried out last summer, and we have a large number of samples we're going to analyze to assess that. I won't get into details of that, but it's in collaboration with the University of Ottawa. Next slide. So project members, there's myself, the project leader, and Paul Gammon at JC Ottawa, and the team here in the Delta Lab, Anna Smirnov, Patrick Watt, Jed Bergeron, and Hussein Patel, who's joined us today again for another contract. He's come out of retirement just to work on this project. It's so much fun. Mark Lizenkor, and for the modeling project, the modeling component to this aspect later on will involve a hydrogeologist, Nicolas Benoit. So I have to say, though, of course, this project, depending upon, we're going to reapply for funding for the mesocosm work next year, and depending on how that goes, of course, the team members will expand and according to our needs and if that money is available. So at INRS, there's Valerie Langlois, the toxicologist. There's Richard Martel, the hydrogeologist, hydrogeochemist, and Scott, a PhD candidate, Scott Heptich, who just started 2 weeks ago. He's in the audience right here. And so the microbial component, we have scientists from McGill University, Nagisa Mahmoudi, and her student Leah Mindorf, who's starting in September. And we also will be carrying out similar experiments, but more looking at the hydrogeological parameters in a microcosm scale in fish tank experiments. And that's being led by Nicholas Udding, and we have a summer student actually be working on that this summer. So from Model U, I mentioned before, we have collaboration on the lacustrine side, Jules Blais and Jose Luis Rodriguez Gil. And EnvironnementCan and climate change, we'll be analyzing the dilbit components using high-resolution mass spec, and the experts there are John Headley and Carrie Peru. Next slide, please. So just to give you a picture of the phase one of the large column experiments we plan on carrying out here at the heavy labs at INRS. So these are large columns. You can see 1 meter by 60 centimeters. And we'll be initially starting out looking at the unsaturated zone. So we're putting homogenized sand into this, and we'll be carrying out 2 experiments with dilbit, 2 with conventional crude, and a couple controls. And we'll be, of course, monitoring a wide variety of parameters over time, over a 3-month period. And then, incorporating toxicology, microbiology, geochemistry, as I mentioned before.